Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Play, Pause, Rewind, our 80th episode. Back again, late again, but you know, it happens. I had some stuff going on this weekend, and Niles had some stuff going on earlier in the week. We both have jobs. We have to work around that. Niles,
Yeah,
how have you been the last couple weeks since we recorded?
good. Time is just breezing by. I can't believe it's already February here in
Mm-hmm.
2024. But yeah, uh, I feel like I've been staying very busy and doing a lot of things, and did some traveling recently. But still finding time to eat and give my cat insulin.
Well, both of those things are very important. Food to stay alive and insulin for your cat so he can stay alive. He needs that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, Dylan? How have you been?
Oh, pretty good. Busy as always. Don't have to give my dog insulin. Viewers, listeners, if you're just now finding out, Niles' cat has diabetes, which is sad. A lot of work goes into taking care of little Kevin now, but he needs it.
He does. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've just known for about 2 weeks or something like that. A week or
Mhm.
1 to 2 weeks, something like that. But yeah, it's twice a day, and it's okay.
How
It's
how
not as
does
bad as you
he?
think it's gonna be.
Yeah, how does he handle the injections? Is he like getting used to getting shots?
I think he is getting used to it. There was a few times at the start where he noticed it more and reacted more, but it's really quick.
Mhm.
It's like it takes like 2 seconds to just like put it into his skin and then do it and then pull it out. It's like painless, honestly, but he
Mhm.
notices sometimes. He
Yeah.
notices.
Well, yeah.
But that,
I mean,
yeah.
I'm glad he's doing okay.
Exactly. Yeah, that's not what we're here to talk about today. We're here to
No.
talk about a new movie, very
Yeah.
exciting new movie from the racing subgenre called
Mhm.
Ferrari.
Yes. Since it is February Valentine's Day month, we decided to do a movie about a man who does not love his wife, Enzo Ferrari. Written and directed by Troy Kennedy Martin and Brock Yates, and directed by Michael Mann. Ferrari follows former racer turned business mogul Enzo Ferrari as he navigates his personal relationships and hopes to save his auto company from financial troubles by leveraging the prestige of winning this really big car race, the Miglia, whatever.
Amelia.
Yeah, thank you. One of
got
us
it close
speaks
enough.
Italian, and it's not me. The film stars Adam Driver, Penelope Cruz, Shailene Woodley, and Giuseppe Festinesi. You do it. You say it.
I think it's Giuseppe Festinese. Oh, that's a tough
Yeah.
last name.
Yeah, there you go. Niles, what are your initial non-spoilery thoughts on Ferrari?
Yeah. You know, before we really dive in, I wanted to clarify my own where I'm coming from with this movie because I think
Yeah.
you and I both we're not really into this subgenre of sports media that is automotive racing. I don't want to speak too much for you, Dylan, but at least me, racing films they just don't really interest me that much.
Okay. Yeah.
Like I haven't seen Ford versus Ferrari. I haven't seen Gran Turismo. There's a lot that I haven't seen in this subgenre, and I think it's a few things of why I'm not interested in these kinds of movies. I'm not a car guy. I know the basics of how a car works, but when you start talking about the difference between a V8 and whatever else, my eyes glaze over. So, but I think I also just don't find these types of sports films particularly interesting because the structural elements are pretty easy to guess and identify. And I know that's, you can say that about superhero movies. You can say that about rom-coms. You can see the
Yeah.
structural elements. You know what's coming. But I think with sports films, you know what's going to happen by the end. Like the team's going to have this tragedy, but they're also going to win. They're going to triumph at the end. It's kind of formulaic in a way. But that's not to say it's a bad thing. And I think it behooves everyone to kind of go outside their comfort zone from time to time and explore other types of media, broaden their horizons, because there are interesting stories within the sports world, within automotive racing. There's great things, and I think Ferrari is a good exploration into other genres, into into these kinds of rich narratives that exist under the surface. You don't really think about these kinds of stories when you think of car brands. You're not exactly thinking about the founder or the owner.
Right, because I think this is more of a drama than a sports movie. Also,
Yeah.
like it is in the world of sports, but I think and Ford versus Ferrari and Rush are the same way. Both movies I
Right.
like a lot. they're about the people involved more so than the sport. But yeah, I don't want to cut you off too much. But I think like this is a drama that takes place in the sports world behind the scenes, not so much like it's not a sports movie specifically. If that makes sense.
No, that's fair. I appreciate you saying that. It's not just remember the Titans or something like that. It's
and even that is about race and drama and stuff like that. But all the best sports movies are about more than just the sport, right?
Yes, it's not just about a miracle. It's about something far more interesting than the miracle. But yeah, I am mostly positive on Ferrari. I think this is an actually very well done film. I think that the two leads, Adam Driver and Penelope Cruz, gave fantastic performances in this movie. And, there are some things that I didn't enjoy too much. We'll talk about that later in spoilers. But I'll also say that I just really do love films that are set in Italy. That country is just absolutely amazing. It's gorgeous. It's scenic. It's all around just breathtaking. And I love the language and the accents. So anytime that I get to go back and revisit Italy in this way is just always a treat. But that's enough out of me. What are your initial thoughts, Dylan?
Yeah, well, this is the second film in the Italian Adam Driver cinematic universe that we've reviewed on this podcast. We reviewed House of Gucci probably like a year and a half ago now. It's a long time ago. I forgot when that came out. But I really enjoyed this. I will say there are two elements of the movie that, while intertwined, felt a little distinct to me, and that's the interpersonal drama stuff and the stuff about the race itself. I found the interpersonal drama much more interesting, even though I think the filmmaking of the driving sequences was incredible and built a lot of tension. In those sequences, I kind of felt like I wanted to get back to what's going on with Enzo and Laura and all of those characters, because that's what was most compelling for me. But I thought some powerhouse performances all around. Mann's filmmaking was also very strong here, especially in those driving sequences. Great director, obviously, the director of Heat, which is an all-time classic film. But I would definitely recommend this. Like, if you're looking for a compelling character drama in the racing world, and an important piece of history. Like, Ferrari is a big deal, and this story seems pretty significant. So I'd recommend it. It was a good watch. But yeah, I think we can go into spoilers now, unless you got anything else.
No, yeah, we could dive in. But yeah, I think you're right there about the importance of the story, because Ferrari, they employed so many people. They've employed so many people, factory workers over the years. These car builders, drivers, all kinds of people, and they were absolutely a driving force within the automotive industry. And so I think it is an important story to explore, and especially more towards the end. I would say there's some more consequential things that happen, but we'll get into that in spoilers. Let's dive in.
Yeah, but circling back to my point about the distinction between like the marriage drama and the car drama, basically, and it's all sort of intertwined, as I mentioned, but like the scenes relating to like the loveless marriage between Enzo and Laura, and also the scenes with his mistress, Lena, I just found much more interesting than the sections that focused on the driving itself. And I felt like all of this stuff really did take a back seat during the race. Like, once the race starts, the majority of our screen time is with the drivers and on the road and stuff like that. And I just kind of felt like I wanted to get back to our main characters. Like, Deportado, the driver, is a major character as well, but I felt like the main characters we've been following for most of the film they're not involved in the race. They're just kind of outside of it, watching it and being affected by it rather than participating in it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. No, that's very true. I agree, because I think I'm in a very similar boat. I found the relationship dynamics between Enzo and Laura to be far more fascinating than the success or the failure of the company or the drivers in general. You do kind of have this complicated, I guess, is the best word I could put for it. It's kind of a love triangle, but also not a love triangle. It's just he's cheating on his wife with this woman that he met during the war, and has a illegitimate son with, and it is complicated. And just kind of exploring those dynamics, I did find that fascinating, and I wish that we spent a little bit more time there too.
And we do spend most of the movie there, which is like a fair point against what we're saying, but it's like we spend most of the movie there, and then all of a sudden we're spending most of the movie on the driving, and it was just a little bit of a weird shift. But I found the dynamic of this marriage that has long lost all romantic love, but them still being very effective business partners to be a really compelling relationship dynamic. And also she knows that he cheats and doesn't really give a shit about it. But it's the way he's cheating, I think, is a little bit more than what she expected. And I loved that he genuinely has like a familial and romantic love for his mistress and her son, but he still keeps them a little bit distant because he wants to keep them a secret from Laura, and only her, basically. It seems like everyone else in the community knows, which has got to be incredibly humiliating for her, which I think is probably why she's so upset when she first discovers it. But
I would be pissed the fuck off if I found that shit out. And one thing when I was doing research for this episode as well, I didn't realize it, but like all of this takes place in the span of a single year, basically.
Oh, okay.
Like all these events are like just a year apart. So their son, Laura and Enzo's son, has like a year-long battle. I can't remember the exact disease, but he's like suffering for a whole year and then he dies, and that's like about like maybe, I don't know, a handful of months before he goes back to work and his racer dies on the track when they're like racing against those other people.
Oh, so he started the affair and had another son while their first son was still alive.
Oh yeah, I mean in the movie it's because they met during the war. I think.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I misunderstood that. You're right. I don't know why I was getting all that out of order, but.
Yeah, it's not very clear on the timeline, but like, during the research, it was just like crazy to me to just see that like him and his wife experienced one loss. He takes some time off of work. He's like, I'm not sure if I'm going to go back to Ferrari and work at it. And then he goes back, and then he loses his like lead driver, like racer guy. Like he just dies on the track, and he's like, all right, I guess I'm just surrounded by loss today or this year. and then later on that year they do the Mille Miglia, and it's he loses another driver, or actually, I guess it was two people in that car, but it was crazy that so much happens so quickly.
Right, and I love we didn't put notes on it, but just like on the loss of their son, I love when they're having their big fight about it, and she's telling him that she blames him because he didn't save him, and his response is like, I don't know why I told you I could do this. Like I did everything I could. I don't know how to solve this problem. I don't know why I promised otherwise. And just their acting in that scene was so perfect. And especially, like, you could feel the pain, especially in Driver's performance, because he's like, obviously he's trying to be supportive and be strong or whatever. And then he just made some bullshit promise that he's completely unequipped to follow through on, and then she actually like believed him, I guess, and was angry that it didn't work out. And I just thought, God, it's such a, I guess, honest portrayal of like going through a loss is just,
Well, losing your firstborn too, that's that just kills you. I mean, any loss is terrible, but that's got to be really traumatic, especially especially when you've been together 10 years and that's your only son, and that's just kind of your whole life. So,
right.
Yeah, I think those emotions came through really well.
You want to talk about some less than positive things real quick that you had?
Yes. I do have some notes on this movie, some things that I think I do want to complain about and things that I think could have been better. too. I'm not saying that these are all like terrible things. Maybe it's just my own perspective, but
Yeah.
I feel like this movie probably would have been better to see in theaters. I think you and I, we both watched this on streaming, and sometimes when I was watching some of these racing moments and stuff, I felt like, oh, this would have been better in the theater with the surround sound and everything. Yeah.
I'm sad I missed it in theaters. But.
Yeah, me too. But whatever. Anyways, I think one of the things that kind of stood out for me on this home viewing experience was the sound mixing at times. I feel like there were several scenes where I noticed the audio levels just suddenly shifted quickly and it undercut some emotional moments. Like I think one of those, the scene that you were just talking about where Enzo and Lara are having this fight and arguing. There's like multiple moments in that scene I remember so clearly where like the sound just all of a sudden gets very quiet and then really loud and then really quiet. But it was just like, I just feel like it kind of undercut some of the emotional moments there. So, I don't know. Did you notice any of that?
Not really, or not to a great extent, honestly. But that is sort of I've had we experience it with Christopher Nolan films sometimes, right? Like he mixes his audio specifically for the theaters, right? The theater experience, and that causes home viewings to suffer. A lot of people experience that, including me, pretty severely with Tenet. And I'm excited that Tenet's getting re-released before Dune 2 because it's like, oh, I can go see this on the big screen now. The pandemic was still raging at full strength when it first came out, and I was like, I will not go to the movies right now. But yeah, I didn't notice it as much this time, but I do know that that's becoming more and more of an issue with modern TVs is just weird audio mixing. Like the dialogue will always be too quiet and then the music is so loud. And
yeah. Well, it is like, the design of the TV and how you're doing your AV system, like where you're placing the sound around your room and stuff. So it's like, it's what it is.
Yeah. Well, it's because the TVs are so thin, right? The speakers are like little tiny guys, and also they're pointed towards the back, so the speakers are pushing sound away from you when you're watching it, which is odd. I guess I should invest in some external speakers at some point. But
I know, me too. That would probably be a wise thing to do. But aside from the sound, one of the things that I found very frustrating was differentiating all the drivers and the racers, especially during that final race, during the Mille, because they're all in the same color car. I have no idea what the numbers are because I wasn't paying attention when they were talking to each other, the numbers. And it's just like, it was just really hard for me to tell who is who. The only person that I could actually identify was De Portaga, because of his outfit and his hairstyle, like it was just very easy for me to see who he was, and I think that was obviously intentional. Right. Because we don't need to know much about the other drivers and everything like that, but there was like when they were on that long race, there was one moment where like one of the cars goes off the road. It doesn't crash. It just goes off the road. And I was like, I don't know if that was the Ferrari team or if that was the competitor team. I couldn't tell.
The Maserati team. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a little frustrating when I don't understand who is who.
No, I totally agree with this. And I'm sure they were going for historical accuracy and maybe both teams just had red cars during this race. Yeah. But the fact that the main two factions in the race, Ferrari and Maserati, were both red was an odd creative choice, and I think this is a moment where maybe take some creative liberties away from history because the tension of this race is between these two groups, right? And I was confused about who was where and all that stuff, and I eventually got used to it by just checking for car logos in the shots where I could. I'm like, okay, there's the Maserati logo, so that's the Maserati team. Fine. But Ferrari logos are very small, and they were often hidden away, and also it doesn't really work in the wide shots as much. I'm sure if you're familiar with the cars themselves, it's easy enough. But I also found that very frustrating, and there's the part a little later on in the race where one of the cars does crash, and then someone else stops to pick him up, and he's like, you want to ride or a shortcut or something like that. And I guessed right. It's like, okay, the Ferrari guy's picking him up. Fine. Yeah. That works. But I just had that moment of hesitation. It's like, which team is picking him up here? Because I liked that the Ferrari driver stopped and picked him up. I thought that was cool and like a nice gesture. But it took me a second to catch up and understand that that's what was going on, you know. And in like we want to be invested in this race, in the tension between who's going to win, but we couldn't tell who was winning and who was losing because all the cars looked the fucking same.
I know. It's like, okay, I don't know who to root for here. But anyways, one of the other things I thought could have been better was actually the portrayal of Linda Lardy's character by Shailene Woodley. Maybe I'm just in my own boat here on her performance, because I thought that she did most of I thought she did well overall. But everyone else in this movie, Adam Driver, Penelope Cruz, like everybody had great accents. They had great enunciations. They had good Italian accents. She was like the one character who I just didn't really get that from in the movie. And it just kind of pulled me out a little bit of like, why do you sound like an American trying to do an Italian accent? But maybe that's just me.
I'll say, like, I thought her performance was good. The acting was good, but I assumed her character was American, which I don't know if that makes any sense or if that's the case or not. I tried to look up beforehand and to see, but I ran out of time. So maybe she was American, or maybe she just didn't try to do the accent, like with like with some historical epics recently. I think they just don't even bother to do the accent. Sometimes it's like, yeah, whatever. Was it The Last Duel, the Ridley Scott movie, The Last Duel, where they're just like, nah, we're not doing French. Fuck it. I don't know.
We don't need to worry about that. This is it's none of our concern. But yeah, maybe she was American. Who knows? I didn't look that up either. So if any listeners know, let us know that we're wrong. But one of the other things that I kind of had an issue with this movie was Enzo Ferrari as a character. And again, I think that Adam Driver, he did a phenomenal job with his performance, and the story is captivating through and through. For me, though, the protagonist just isn't very likable, in my opinion, and I think that is especially true in the first half of the film. As it goes on, and we learn a little bit more about his relationship with Lardy, and where that started, and the love that they have for each other, he does get better and more likable, in my opinion. But just initially, he kind of came off as slimy, and just the whole movie too. He just always prioritizes racing and winning in kind of every capacity of his life, and I feel like he does at times put that above his family, and he also puts that above, the lives of his drivers or just the livelihood of his factory workers. Like there's one scene where it's like, where's everybody at the factory today?
Yeah.
Like, I gave them the day off because it's the day of the race, and you make them work on the weekends, dude. Like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah. But also you have the element where he's like, he doesn't really push back on that. He's like, that's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
I will also push back on this as a criticism of the movie, because like, he was a guy, like he was a real person, and like,
yeah, you can't change history. So
yeah, it's like, I will say too, like he is kind of like an asshole in a lot of ways, but you also have those moments of thoughtfulness too, like at the beginning when he's leaving the house, and he doesn't want to wake up the kid, so he just quietly pushes the car and doesn't start the engine until he gets farther away. But yeah, I mean, like, he's a bit of a dick in ways, but there's one element of his character that I want to talk about later that I really liked. But yeah, sure. I mean, like, he's not your traditional hero protagonist or whatever that you're always rooting for. He's a businessman.
Yeah.
and he comes with a lot of those same negative traits that we associate with businessmen. Although he does seem to have a little bit more integrity, specifically with business, maybe not so much in his personal life, but
yeah, no, it's all fine. He gets better as the movie goes along and more sympathetic, I would say. There was one part of the movie that it's not necessarily a complaint, it was just jarring for me. It was the first scene, I don't know if you remember, Dylan, but it's like it's black and white shots. It's like some historical footage of old cars racing and stuff, and then it's interspersed with these black and white shots of Adam Driver driving his car, and you got that shitty CGI screen from the 70s in the background, so it looks really fake and like outdated and stuff, and it's like it is kind of fun, and I like the idea. Just in the moment, I'm like, that looks. You can tell which footage is old and which footage is really new.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. But back to his character a little bit. I enjoyed how the movie felt honest about its portrayal of him in the way that he's not a super nice hero character. You know, he's just. I didn't get the sense that they were trying to whitewash him or anything. They were just presenting him as the writers at least saw him. Like he clearly loves his son. Right, Piero, I think his name was, but he doesn't acknowledge him with his name the entire film, and he's like really waffling about that the entire time, and presumably he continues to not do that until Laura dies at her request, which is also a very interesting character dynamic there, because, you know, in a more Hollywoodified movie, you know, maybe she's like, oh, I'd like to meet him or something, and you get some nice little closure. And they reconcile that. But then in, I guess, reality and this, she's like, nope, I don't want to meet him, and I don't want him to have our name until I'm dead. And also his infidelity is, like, pretty shitty, you know, and they don't shy away from that at all. So.
No, they really don't. Well, I think, you know, just kind of shows that he was a complex man. And I feel like a lot of businessmen can be complex. You know, there's a lot more under the surface than what we realize when we first, you know, judge a book by the cover. You know, there's substance under there, and so yeah. But I do think that he was a character that grew on me over the course of the film. There's just also a part of me that's just like, why should I care about like the owner of this amazing company that's worth billions today, you know, like that generates so much money and revenue, and it's like, why should I care about this guy? So there's just that small little curmudgeon in me too.
Totally, yeah. But let's talk about some things, some positives too.
Things that we liked about the movie. Yeah. Yes, there's plenty to like.
Even though like half of our things we didn't like conversation was things we also kind of liked.
Yeah.
All right. But yeah, carry on.
Oh yeah, I think one of the things that I really enjoyed was how they shot the driving sequences. There's a lot of scenes that it does feel like you're put in the driver's seat, and one of the scenes that comes to mind in particular was that first one where Adam Driver's driving, like when he pushes the car out, you know, and then he starts it as it's rolling down the hill. Every time he shifts gears, the camera quickly cuts to each motion he does. Clutch, shift, gas, drop clutch, drive. You know, it's like, it's so quick. And it's like, oh, I liked that style of shooting, you know. But yeah, all the driving sequences I thought were really cool too. When you're in that driver's seat and you're looking out and seeing which way you're turning, I thought that was just really phenomenal.
Speaking of the driving, just a funny moment, like when he's in that sequence when he's driving into town, it's like I think it's Deportato who comes up to him when he's in the car. He's like, "Oh, Mr. Ferrari," and then he's like, "Vroom," and he talks to him later. It's like, he's like, "I tried to catch you when you're driving." It's like, "Yeah, but the light turned green."
It's like, I had to go. I couldn't stop and talk.
I thought that was so fucking funny.
I loved that. That was a good interaction for them on screen.
Yep.
I also really liked, Penelope Cruz's character, Laura Ferrari. I thought she just gave such an exceptional performance here. She, the word that comes to mind is tiger because of Fargo. I just finished that fifth season, and the female protagonist in the show is described as a tiger. And I feel that here with Laura. She did feel like a tiger to me. She's very powerful and captivating when she's on screen. And I felt like she emoted really well. You could feel the pain she was experiencing after her son's passing. And when they go to that, or when she has her driver take her to that one place, I can't remember the name of it, but it's where Laura
the house
living.
where
Laura's house, basically her old
Lena's
house, whatever.
Yeah.
And she's just kind of grappling with this realization that she has a kid, and it's probably my husband's, and it's like you could just feel that emotion coming through. So I thought she was definitely a standout for me.
Yeah, it was an excellent performance, and I think like there were a lot of predictions that she would be nominated for Best Actress for this, and like I don't know, I'm kind of weird about saying someone was snubbed or whatever because who was nominated who didn't deserve it. I don't think it works that way. Like every performance nominated, I'm sure was perfectly worthy, but I think so was Penelope Cruz in this. But yeah, and then like the dynamics between all the lead characters as well was just really gripping, I thought.
Yeah, I agree. You could feel the tension. It was neat to see, and I really liked seeing how they went about their days so separately while being so closely connected. You know, they both go to their son's
Mausoleum,
grave,
whatever.
I guess, the same day, but they go separately. You know, and I thought that was just fascinating to see that. But they're still like joined at the hip because of the business.
I also thought that was really interesting, and additionally, I liked Enzo's relationship with his drivers. Like, there are like the older guy, he considers him a really old friend, and he seems to really like all of them and care about them as people. But also, he has this expectation. It's like, if you're driving, you do what is expected to win. Like, you win. You're not. And he has that conversation about like, am I a sportsman or am I a competitor? And if you're in one of my cars, you're a competitor. You drive to win. You do not, like, you make them crash. If one of you is going to crash, you make it be them. I thought that was a really interesting dynamic there. And I also loved the idea that, like, you guys can date actresses and models. That's all fun. I encourage it. I like it. But I do not want them at the race because the cameras need to be on my cars. I thought there are just so many interesting little bits of texture to his personality that are peppered throughout in his dialogue that are so interesting.
I agree. Yeah, it's very nuanced.
And yeah, let's talk about the big sequence towards the end now, because that crash was very upsetting. And it's in the there's the crash earlier on at the practice track, and I watched it, and because I remember there's like a bunch of discourse about the crash or whatever, and when the trailer first came out, the crash, out of context, they were like, oh, this looks kind of bad and cheap or blah, 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 or whatever. Whatever, it doesn't matter. But then when I'm watching the movie and we get to the sequence with like the road with all the trees on the side, I remembered the trailer, and I'm like, oh no, I remember the crash happens on this street. I thought I was misremembering earlier, and I'm like, oh no, something bad, really bad is about to happen.
Yeah. They were building to it because they mentioned like, oh, how are the tires? Do we need to change the tires? He's like, no, don't worry, it's fine, we can make it. And but yeah, my jaw just dropped when that sequence happens, and he gets to flat and tumbles. Oh my god.
Yeah, when it cuts to that close up of the road and you see that little, it's not a speed bump, but it's like a lane divider looking thing. It's a
cat's eye, basically. It's like one of those reflective strips on the road.
Yeah, to separate like which direction is which. And my stomach just dropped. I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, right.
Like, this is gonna be so. And then involuntary, just like hand to mouth when the car just starts ripping through people.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Oh wait, no. You know the moment that really made me realize something bad was going to happen? It's even before we get to the shot that made me remember the trailer. It's when we cut to a random fucking family sitting down for dinner, and I'm like, uh-oh. That's not good.
This isn't good.
Why are you making me care about this family right now?
Damn you, Michael Mann.
It's like something really bad is about to happen. Yeah. Oh god, it's so devastating. It's just it's so gruesome, but also matter of fact. Like it just happens. The car flies through the air. It rips through all these people, and then the movie carries the fuck on. It's like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, well, anytime that there's some kind of crash like that, even the crash at the start of the movie,
Mm-hmm.
they just breeze through it. They're like, he's like, there's no funeral shown or anything like that. It's just kind of like, all
Mm-hmm.
right, you're up. He just points to the guy and he says, "You're my new driver," and that's kind of what happens. And they talk about it maybe for a few sentences, but it's like they move on so quickly. And you're right, here they do too. After this crash, it's like the next scene is literally them celebrating, "We won! We
Mm-hmm.
won the Mille Miglia!" you know?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, and I think that this really plays into how Enzo Ferrari himself handles tragedy, and he says this at the beginning of the movie because it's like it's his brother and his friend, or his brother and his father, or something, but they
yeah,
both died on the same day. And what's the quote? He's like, either Enzo deals with this and moves on, or Enzo does something else. Like
yeah,
he kind of comes to the realization that if he is going to be in this business, he needs to compartmentalize these traumatic events. He needs to. It's sort of like this happened. It's very unfortunate, and I need to move forward to get back to business. But I do think this crash affects him differently, which we'll talk about more in just a second. You have some history that you wanted
yeah,
to talk about a little
absolutely.
bit.
Well, yeah, and I will say too that yeah, there was a part of me that feels that kind of wishes that they spent a little bit more time exploring this event
Mm-hmm.
and bringing it to the screen here because it is serious. I
Mm-hmm.
did a little bit of research on the crash. It was the crash that effectively ended the Mille Miglia, which was
Mm-hmm.
an annual tradition in Italy since 1927. So there were 24 races, I believe
Okay.
they said. Or I don't know if it was annual, but they did it a lot. They did it since then. Um, it's 1,000 miles. There's like over 400 curves, and you're going at speeds of over like 150 miles an hour. So you
Mm-hmm.
don't know what's coming around the next turn. You're going over a hill. You have no idea what's coming at you. So it's an incredibly dangerous thing.
Yep.
And this crash, it killed 9 people, and 5 of them were children.
Yeah.
And they were just 21 miles from the finish line, too, which is
Mm-hmm.
insane.
Yeah.
Um, and I feel like we kind of talked about this. I can't remember if it was with the House of Gucci or if it was another movie, but I feel like there's a whole movie that you could do here about the trial for Enzo
It
because he
was
gets
House of
put.
Gucci that we talked about that with,
Yeah,
actually,
yeah,
which
that's
is
right.
very
Yeah,
funny.
yeah, both two movies that Adam should have been in a courtroom in Italy, but because he gets put on trial for manslaughter, and
Mm-hmm.
the trial actually lasted for 4 years. Can
That's
you
yeah, that's pretty crazy.
4 years? That's so long. And he was acquitted on all charges eventually.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just crazy that they just breezed through it so quickly. And this wasn't the first. To be fair, this wasn't the first time that people died during this race. There was another crash in 1938
Mm-hmm.
that killed 10 people, and they were going to like just cancel the event outright, but there was
Yep.
such high demand for it that they brought it
Mm-hmm.
back because people wanted to see it again.
Interesting. Yeah.
Um,
Well, I
so
was
it was
thinking the
just
entire race sequence, like how absurdly dangerous some of the places where the audience members were standing were, and I'm like, guys, if something goes wrong, you're dead. Little did I
yep.
know.
Yeah. But yeah, I feel like that there is there's a part of me that wishes we spent more time on this crash or the
Hmm.
fallout from it. Because yeah, like we said, they just breezed through it and they just kind of focus on the victory. But it is kind of a short-lived victory because they got to go collect the body, they got to go collect the car and
Hmm.
everything, and then you get to see the trauma in person. But the fallout would have been huge, or it should
Hmm.
have been huge, and it's just fucking crazy that the company didn't like go out of business because of it. It actually survived. It came out of this better than ever before.
Hmm.
Like if that same shit happened today, if that same event took place today, my
Hmm.
god, the PR shitstorm that followed would be insurmountable.
Yeah. Well, and I think the movie sort of skews it in a way because based on the history that you found, like it seems like there was a huge PR shit show, right? And he was put on a manslaughter trial for 4 years or whatever. And I think that's why that's the part of that scene between Laura and Enzo towards the end, where it's like she's like, to survive this, you will need the cash that I just cashed out from the company, and that's probably how they ultimately survived. But
Hmm.
like, And you ask here, I think, fairly, like, how were there no consequences? And it's just because there was no fault to Ferrari found here. Like, it genuinely was not on them. There was a thing in the road. Like, the tires were fine, the cars were fine, the drivers were fine. The real question is, why the fuck was the racetrack not cleared? Not like reviewed ahead of time, probably because it's 1,000 miles long. But it's like, whose oversight was it that thing was there? Because it wasn't really Ferrari's oversight.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there's so many factors that go into that, but yeah, it's like there's a lot of drama that could have been explored there. But we've been talking about his own method of dealing with traumatic events and how he kind of builds up this wall around it to keep himself pushing on and racing towards, his ambition, his passion, doing the things that he loves to do. And so in a way, them breezing through this event really quickly just reflects his own approach to kind of casing off or walling off the trauma and just saying, let's forge ahead. Let's keep going. Like, yes, this was a tragedy, but there's races to be won and there's cars to be made and there's money to be had. It's such a devastating scene, but at least he got the autograph finally.
Yeah, he remembered. But going back to what I alluded to earlier, like, I do think this crash affects him differently than the other tragedies do, because I really love this moment towards the end where one of his guys, I forget the character's name, but he's like, in response to the crash, he's like, we know the risk, and he's like, no, we do, but children don't know, families don't know. And it's like, I really appreciated that distinction he draws. It's like, if you choose to get involved, you understand the risks, but he feels genuine remorse that people who did not make that choice were suffering the consequences of this. And because it's like, yeah, that makes sense. You shouldn't, like, if you play a professional, like, full contact sport, you understand that you may suffer serious permanent injury, but you don't go to a football game expecting to get your neck broken, right? And if you do, that's kind of fucking unfair, right?
Yeah. It's a big problem if that happens. But yeah, I think you're right on the money there, because he does give that pep talk to his team earlier in the movie. We mentioned it before. It's like, just tells them, no one's forcing you to race here. Like, no one's forcing you to get in that car. We're all driven by the same passion to go fast. And if you're going to get into my car, you need to drive to win. I'm not going to accept, like, second place, third place, or anything like that. Like, this isn't a gentleman's sport. This is life or death in a way. And their main priority is speed, and it's winning.
Yeah. I just thought that scene really, it softens the edges of him a little bit, and it shows a level of, humanity and distinction between the participants and the observers that he finds important, which also plays into why I think he, like, tries to be a little bit more of a martyr towards the end, right? When he goes out to the press, it's like, if you're looking for someone to blame me. And Laura's like, what are you doing? Like, this isn't
what are you doing,
actually
dude?
your fault. But because he feels guilt over this and can't get by it, he's trying to fall on the sword a little bit, because and like, I think in a lot of ways when a tragedy happens, all of us instinctively look for someone to blame, and the reality a lot of the time is there wasn't really any one person to blame. It's either systems or coincidence or just, bad fucking luck. And I think this section is a little bit about that. Like, he feels guilt and wants to blame himself, but it really isn't his fault. It's not really anybody's fault. It's just a shit luck.
Yeah. It's a tragedy with multiple factors influencing it. So, yeah. There is some drama in there, but yeah, at the end of the day, I think you're right. You can't just place the blame solely on Enzo. Yeah. Anything else that you'd like to say about Ferrari?
I enjoyed it. Good movie. I'd recommend it. Always nice to have a good character-based drama to watch. And it was really well made. So, good movie. What about you?
Yeah, I'd agree. I think I'd I'd recommend it with an asterisk of if you like this kind of genre of movie, I'd recommend it for sure. I don't know if it's going to click for everybody, but if you're a car guy, I'm sure you'll like it, even if there's not a ton of racing in it. But yeah, I think I'd recommend it for most people. I think it just depends on what you like and what you like to explore. But it's okay to be uncomfortable and explore things that are out of your element that you're not really used to watching.
Yeah, for sure. All right, but let's hop in to talk about some other stuff now. Just other stuff we've been watching, reading, or playing, or whatever. Niles, what all have you been watching?
So recently we watched this fascinating true crime docu-series on Netflix called American Nightmare. It's like a 3-parter, just 3 episodes real quick, and it is a fascinating tale of and an outlandish tale too of this couple who basically, the woman gets kidnapped. Like, it's a home invasion in the middle of the night. The woman gets kidnapped, and just the circumstances around it are just so bizarre. Like, I don't want to spoil too much, but it is just fascinating. Like, the killer, or the criminal, I guess I would say, he'd like force everyone who was involved to wear these like taped out goggles so they wouldn't see who's talking, and like he broke into their house in the middle of the night, and it was so clearly planned. It's fascinating. If you're a true crime fan, I definitely recommend checking it out. It's literally like, it'll take you 3 hours to get through it, just an evening of television. It is honestly fascinating, and you get to hear from like everybody who survived, and the parents.
Nice.
Don't get to hear from the criminal at all. So
and
I love that. I love that when they don't get a platform.
No, yeah, exactly, because that's like a lot of the time what serial killers and like mass shooters and stuff are looking for is a platform and to gain that infamy, right? So denying that to them is actually very responsible.
Yeah, well, and it's a great story too, because it really shines a light on incompetence within policing and the FBI as well. Like, these agents just totally dropped the ball at every turn. They were like, "Oh, let's not take this crime seriously and question the woman if this actually happened," or like, "Let's just focus on the boyfriend. He's definitely the person who committed the crime." It's just,
oh my God!
So if you hate law enforcement, you're gonna love American Nightmare. But that's a great one. We're also watching True Detective Night Country, continuing on with that.
Nice.
And I'm liking it a lot. Very cool stuff
Are
going
you
on.
caught up all the way, or are you still behind?
Yep.
Okay.
All caught up. Yeah,
Nice.
It's really cool. The spiritual kind of elements in it are neat. And we are continuing to watch RuPaul's Drag Race, the new season 16, with all these sickening, crazy, bitchy queens. There's so much drama this season. It's just get your popcorn and just sit down and watch. This is amazing.
Nice.
That's it for me. What about you, Dylan?
Yeah.
What have you been up to?
Well, last night I finished the last couple episodes of the Percy Jackson and the Olympians show. It was okay. It lands a little flat for me. I really loved those books as a kid, and I hope they get renewed and are able to add some more flair and style. There were a lot of sequences where I'm just like, this is a volume-ass looking scene. They're clearly just standing in a small room, and there's a bunch of like screens around them, which kind of sucks. But I think there's a lot of potential here. It's a fun book series, and if they're allowed to grow into the roles and sort of follow through on the whole thing, I think it could be a ton of fun. So high hopes for that if it comes back. I also started another playthrough of Cyberpunk 2077, but
Nice.
this time as I made V as a girl this time, because there are different story and romance options based on the gender you choose your character, and I'm going to play this one with the expansion installed as well. So I need to get the expansion. That's the thing that has Idris Elba in it. So now the game has both Idris Elba and Keanu Reeves, which is a lot of fun.
Wow.
But yeah. But it's my computer has been significantly upgraded from the first time I played Cyberpunk to now, so it's like it's so nice to run it at a smooth frame rate this time.
You're like, wow, what is this world that I'm
I
walking
know.
through so fluidly?
Yeah. But also continuing to read Neil Stephenson's The Cryptonomicon. I'm about 200 pages in now. Still got 1,000 pages left, so I'll be reading that for a little while. And then also watching True Detective Night Country. So we'll be doing an episode on that when that show is done, I'm sure. I'm liking it as well. I, of course, don't love it as much as I loved season 1. But it's I think like the connections to season 1 are not enough to bother me. They're just kind of, extra little things. They don't really affect the main story yet.
I agree.
And I will be bothered if in like the finale Woody Harrelson shows up or something like that. Like that would piss me off. But
yeah.
I'm fine with the True Detective stories all taking place in the same universe. Like, who gives a shit? And like, I'm curious to see if there is actually a supernatural element to it, or if there will be a rational explanation at the end. And I don't know how I'll feel about it either way. So we'll just have to wait and see until the season is done, and we'll talk about it when we talk about that show. But also, you'll be excited about this. Last night, I started Neon Genesis Evangelion. I watched the first 3 episodes of that. It's really fucking cool.
Right? It's so fun.
It's already, like, kind of depressing as well. There are moments where I'm like, oh, I can see y'all ran out of money here, so you just had a dialogue scene with, like, from the outside of a building's window.
Yep.
But it's cool. I like what's going on. I'm interested to see where it goes. And I also like that it's only 26 episodes in a movie, so I don't have to commit to it for like years like I would with the One Piece anime or something.
Right? Yeah, it's very digestible. And yeah, the don't worry, Dylan, there'll be lots more depression and sadness coming your way with that show. But don't want to spoil too much of it, but yeah, it's so awesome. What angel are you on? What was the last angel?
Oh, the one that looks like a kind of a floating thing, like this shaped. So it's he just protected his 2 like classmates. The guy who punches. Yeah. So literally the 3rd episode. Like, I'm very early.
Yeah. You got some time to go, but yeah, it's a fascinating mystery.
The second one. That's the answer to your question. The second angel. He just fought that one.
Second angel. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know why I had such a hard time answering that question. It's very simple.
It's okay. Yeah.
But I love the strange idea, but very cool world building where, like, when an angel attacks, all the, I guess, deemed significant enough skyscrapers just sink underground and become like stalactites in this big underground thing.
Right?
Like, it's so cool and weird. And I love sci-fi and fantasy universes like this that are like, we are not going to explain logic or how this would work because this would be the stupidest, most expensive project in the universe to build these facilities.
Yeah.
But they're here because this is this universe. And Pacific Rim is the same way, which is big, giant mech robots fighting monsters as well. I think that's a conceit of this genre. It's an objectively stupid premise. It would not happen in real world, and you just have to roll with it. And I like that. I like things that confound the logic boy YouTuber. It's like, they would never do this. It's like, yeah, that's why it's cool. That's why it's fun.
It's fun because it's improbable and absurd. Like, yeah, I love that show because it's like you're saying, at the end of one episode, just Shinji's robot just gets annihilated.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the arm is ripped off and all the armor's stripped off and shit, and Shinji's just got like a concussion and everything. And then the next episode, everything's fine and we're back to normal and the robot's repaired.
Yeah, and I also just love how fucked up it is. Like, they lure this kid there under kind of false pretenses, and then they're like, okay, we need you to pilot this mech suit and fight that thing.
Yeah.
He's like, what? Excuse me?
Are you fucking kidding me?
and it's like, well, I guess he's not going to do it, so bring out the girl whose body is like broken in half right now. She's not ready to do this, but we have no one else, so just shove her in the machine and let her go. Like,
I forgot about that.
and then her little stretcher falls over, and she's just like on the ground.
Yeah, it's like, oh, Ray, I'm so sorry for you.
Oh God. But it's great. I like it. It's a good show so far.
I'm glad you're enjoying it. Yeah, that'll be we'll talk a lot about that off there.
Yeah, as I watch through it, I'm sure. But yeah, I think that's gonna do it for us this week, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. Thank you all so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed the episode and what we had to say about Ferrari. We'll be back again in 2 weeks. I'm not sure what we're talking about just yet, but we'll have something good for you guys.
There's a good batch of stuff coming up, so we need to figure out the order we're doing it in. But it's like Dune Part 2 is coming out very soon. True Detective's ending. The Avatar: Last Airbender live action Netflix show is coming up. So we'll probably do episodes on all of those three and maybe something else. We just need to pick an order. And but yeah, stay tuned. We'll be back in 2 weeks. And if you like the show, like and subscribe on YouTube. Subscribe on your podcast platform of choice and leave a 5-star review if you would like to. Share with your friends and family if you think they'd be interested. And Niles, where can people find you online until our next episode?
On Instagram at Niles Got No Styles. What about you, Dylan? Where can people follow you online?
On Instagram at DylanD1026, on Twitter at DDayMovies, on YouTube at D-Day Movies, on Twitch at D-Day_movies. You can find both of us here at Play, Pause, Rewind all over the internet, and also on our second channel, Play, Pause, Rewind Videos, which has our Rewind series, as well as spoiler-free sections of our episodes, and some other clips and shorts and stuff like that. We also have a TikTok, and all of that's linked down below, so go check it out if you would like to. We'll see you guys back for our next episode, and until then, bye. Stay safe. Peace out.
Bye.